The rain was pounding hard against the lobby's glass when I felt the touch on the sleeve of my coat. It was light. Almost imperceptible. The kind you ignore when you're tired, when you've just come out of a 3-hour meeting discussing numbers that could feed an entire city. I was exhausted. My head throbbed. All I wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and forget that the world existed for a few hours. But that touch persisted. I turned around, irritated, ready to brush off whoever it was. And then I saw the boy. He must have been about 7 years old, maybe 8. Dark hair stuck to his forehead from the rain, eyes too wide for the size of his face. The backpack on his back was soaked, dripping onto the marble floor of the lobby. He was trembling. I don't know if it was from the cold or something else. "Sir." His voice came out low, almost a whisper. "Please, can I stay here with you? Just for a little bit." I looked around. The lobby was empty, except for the doorman checking something on the computer, his back turned to us. It was almost midnight. What was a boy that age doing alone on the street at that hour? "Where are your parents?" I asked, trying to sound less harsh than I felt. He bit his lower lip. His small fingers gripped the strap of the backpack so tightly that his knuckles were white. "My mom is working. I was coming back from my grandmother's house, but," he swallowed hard, "there's a man following me." I felt something tighten in my chest, but logic spoke louder. Children are afraid of the dark. They see shadows where there are none. I had been a child once myself, had run home imagining monsters behind every corner. "Are you sure? Sometimes we think that." "He's there." The boy pointed to the glass door, to the dark street outside. I looked. I saw nothing but the rain falling under the yellowish streetlights. Cars passing. Buildings in the distance. Nothing abnormal. "There's no one out there, son. He's been behind me since the subway station." The boy's voice trembled. At first I thought it was a coincidence. But then I crossed the street. And he crossed too. I went back. He went back. I went into a store and pretended I was looking at things, and he stayed outside just watching. There was something in the way he spoke. No drama. No crying. Just raw fear, the kind no adult can fake. When I left the store, he kept following me. Closer this time. The boy took a deep breath. Then I saw this building. With lights. With people. And I thought that if I went in. He didn't finish the sentence. I should have called the doorman immediately. I should have called the police. But something made me look at the street again. This time, more carefully. Without rushing. Without that arrogant certainty that children always exaggerate. And then I saw it. A figure. Standing under the awning of the building next door. Motionless. Watching our lobby through the glass. My blood ran cold. The man was dressed in dark clothes, a hood covering part of his face. But that wasn't what frightened me. It was the posture. The way he stood there without moving, without looking away, as if he were calculating. Waiting. Is it him? My voice came out more serious than I intended. The boy nodded, moving closer to me. He's not going to leave. I put my hand on the boy's shoulder. He was really shaking now. And I, who 2 minutes earlier had almost sent this boy away, felt a wave of anger rise in my throat. "What's your name?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Daniel." "Daniel, I'm Thomas. You did the right thing coming here. Nothing is going to happen to you, okay? You're safe now." He looked at me with those eyes that were too big, searching for certainty. For protection. For someone who believed him. And I realized in that moment how many times in my life I had ignored signs. How many times I had chosen the easiest explanation, the most convenient one, because it was simpler than facing the truth. Not this time. I took out my phone and called the building's security. Then the police. And while I waited for someone to answer, I kept Daniel by my side, between me and the door, where that shadow couldn't reach him. Outside, the man remained standing. Watching. Waiting. But now, he was no longer hunting alone. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave in the comments what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. The call to the police took an eternal 3 minutes before someone answered. 3 minutes in which the man outside did not move a single centimeter. 3 minutes in which Daniel squeezed my hand hard enough to leave marks. Emergency dispatch, what's the situation? I explained quickly. A boy being followed. A suspicious adult standing in front of the building. Possible kidnapping attempt. The operator told me not to hang up and said a patrol car was on the way. The doorman finally noticed what was happening. Jorge, a man in his early 50s whom I greeted every day but had never really spoken to, crossed the lobby with long strides. Mr. Thomas? Is there a problem? I indicated the man outside with a nod of my head. Jorge looked. His expression changed instantly. He knew that kind of situation. He had seen things like that before. I'm going to lock the doors, he said, already moving. And call the block's security. While Jorge activated the security protocols, I crouched down to Daniel's height. He was calmer now, but still shaking. The wet clothes didn't help. Daniel, I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning. When did you realize he was following you? The boy took a deep breath, as if preparing to relive something he wanted to forget. It was at Central Station. I got off the subway and he was there, near the turnstiles. At first I didn't pay attention. There were a lot of people. But then I went up the stairs and noticed he went up too. Always behind me. Did he say anything to you? Daniel shook his head. No. He just stared. And smiled. A strange smile, you know? Like it was funny to see me scared. I felt my stomach twist. That kind of behavior had a name. A pattern. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't a mistake. Had you seen this man before? At school? Near your house? Daniel hesitated. It was only a second, but I noticed. Daniel. I think so. His voice got even lower. Last week, when I was coming back from math class, there was a man standing in front of the bakery. With a hood too. He kept looking at me when I passed by. I told my mom, but she said I was imagining things, that there were a lot of people on the street and that I shouldn't be afraid of everyone. Guilt crossed the boy's face like a shadow. He thought it was his fault. That he had done something wrong by feeling afraid. I put both hands on his shoulders, forcing him to look me in the eyes. Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you, Daniel. You didn't imagine anything. You're not exaggerating. Your instinct was right. You felt something was wrong because something was wrong. And the best thing you did today was ask for help. Do you understand me? He nodded, and I saw something change in that look. A bit of relief. A bit of validation. Jorge came back. Police are 2 blocks away. And the guy outside just moved. We all looked toward the door. The man had stepped out from under the awning and was now walking slowly toward our building. Each step was calculated. Deliberate. Daniel shrank behind me. Is he going to try to get in? Jorge asked, his hand already on the intercom to call for backup. I don't know, I answered, but I kept my body between the boy and the door. The man stopped less than 3 meters from the glass. Now, under the lobby lights, I could see his face better. He must have been around 40. Unshaven beard. Sunken eyes that seemed to evaluate every movement we made. And then he did something that made my blood run cold. He waved. Not at me. Not at Jorge. At Daniel. A slow wave, as if greeting an old friend. As if saying, I know you. I know where you live. This isn't over. Daniel let out a sound that was half gag, half sob. He recognized that wave. He had seen it before. He did that last week too, Daniel whispered. In front of the bakery. Before leaving. Before I could respond, sirens cut through the night. 2 patrol cars turned the corner, blue and red lights reflecting in the rain puddles. The man turned his head toward the lights. For a second, I thought he might run. But he didn't. He stood there motionless, as if weighing his options. As if calculating whether he still had time. 4 officers got out of the patrol cars. 2 came straight to our door. The other 2 approached the man. ID. I heard one of the officers order outside. The man didn't respond immediately. He looked once more at Daniel, that strange smile still on his lips, before finally pulling something out of his pocket. That's when I saw the phone in his hand. The screen lit up, pointed at us. He was taking pictures of Daniel through the glass, even with the police standing next to him. And it was at that moment that I realized this man wasn't afraid of being caught. He had done this before, many times, and he had gotten away with it. But not this time. Not while I was breathing. I left the lobby before Jorge could stop me. The rain hit me like an icy slap, but I barely felt it. My focus was on the nearest police officer, a tall man with a tired expression who was examining the subject's documents. "Officer." My voice came out firmer than I expected. That man was taking pictures of the boy. Just now. "I need you to check his phone." The hooded man looked at me for the first time, really looked at me. There was no anger in his eyes. No fear. Just a disturbing emptiness, as if he were assessing how much trouble I could cause. "Sir, please go back inside the building," the officer said, but there was something in his voice that changed. A new attentiveness. "He followed a child for 6 blocks, I insisted. "He's in possession of possibly illegal images. You have grounds to search the device." The other officer, a woman with her hair tied back and sharp eyes, stepped closer. She had noticed something her colleague hadn't yet. "Your name?" she asked the man. "Roberto Silva." His voice was monotone, rehearsed. "Do you live in this area, Mr. Silva?" "I have the right to walk on the street." "I didn't ask if you had the right. I asked where you live." Silence. The officer extended her hand. "The phone, please." "You need a warrant for that." "Actually, we don't." She kept her hand extended. "We have a report of a possible crime against a minor. That gives me authorization for a preliminary check." "The phone. Now." For a moment, I thought he would refuse. I thought he might run. But then he handed over the device, that strange smile still on his lips, as if he knew something we didn't. The officer unlocked the screen. Her face hardened almost immediately. "Dispatch, I need backup." "And a specialized unit," she said into the radio, without taking her eyes off the phone. "We have suspicious material. A lot of images. A lot of children." I felt my stomach churn. The man was handcuffed right there, under the rain, while his rights were read to him. He didn't resist. He didn't say a word. He just kept looking toward the lobby, to where Daniel was watching everything from behind the glass. I went back inside, soaked. Daniel was exactly where I had left him, Jorge by his side with a thermal blanket over the boy's shoulders. "We already called your mom," Jorge said softly. "She's on her way." Daniel looked at me with those big eyes. Is he going to come back?" I knelt in front of him again. "No. He's not going to come back. Ever." "How do you know?" "Because what he did is a serious crime. He's going to be in prison for a long time. And even when he gets out, he'll be on a list. He'll be monitored. He won't be able to get close to you or any other child." But as I spoke, a question hammered in my mind. How many other children had that man followed before Daniel? How many had been afraid but said nothing? How many had asked for help and weren't believed? The officer came into the lobby, wiping water from her face. "We'll need the boy's statement. And yours as well." We spent the next hour answering questions. Daniel told everything again, this time with more detail. The bakery. Last week. The times he felt like he was being watched but thought it was paranoia. "He has good instincts," the officer said to me when Daniel went to the bathroom with Jorge. "Many children can't tell when something is wrong. He could. And more importantly, he asked for help." I almost didn't listen, I admitted, and the weight of that truth felt like lead in my chest. I almost sent him away. I thought it was imagination. "But you didn't. You stopped. You listened. And that saved that boy," she said, handing me a card. "We found more than 200 photos on the phone. Different children. Different places. Schools, parks, subway stations. This man had been doing this for years. Do you understand what that means?" I did. It meant Daniel wasn't the first victim. But because of him, he would be the last. When Daniel's mother arrived, it was like watching someone collapse and rebuild at the same time. She hugged her son so tightly I thought she might break him, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, my love. I'm sorry for not believing you when you told me about the man at the bakery. I'm sorry. Daniel just hugged her back, burying his face in her shoulder. She turned to me. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my son when I didn't. I couldn't respond. I just nodded. They left 15 minutes later, Daniel still holding his mother's hand tightly. But before leaving, he came back and hugged me. Thank you for believing me, Mr. Thomas. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help, Daniel. When the door closed, I was alone in the empty lobby. Jorge had returned to his desk. The rain kept falling outside. And I stood there, staring at the glass where everything had happened, thinking about all the times in my life I had ignored signs because it was easier. Because it was more convenient. Because I was too tired to care. Not anymore. I took out my phone and started making calls. There was work to do. Changes to implement. A silent promise to keep. That lobby had become more than just a place. It had become a landmark. The place where someone finally listened. 3 days later, I was sitting in a meeting room that I normally use to close multimillion-dollar deals. But today there were no executives in suits. There were no spreadsheets or profit projections. There were 5 people. A social worker. 2 public school principals. A child psychologist. And the detective who had arrested Roberto Silva. Thank you for coming, I began, my hands clasped on the table. I know it seems strange for a businessman to call a meeting about child safety, but after what happened, I can't just go back to my routine. The detective opened a folder. We have updates on the case. Roberto Silva confessed. Partially. He admitted to following children. He admitted to taking photos. But he claims he never touched anyone, so he thinks he didn't commit a serious crime. She paused. He's wrong, of course. Stalking, harassment, possession of inappropriate material. He'll answer for all of it. But during the interrogation, we discovered something worse. The silence in the room was thick. He's part of a group. Online. Where they share photos, locations, schedules. Information about children who go to school alone, who walk home alone. It's organized. Systematic. I felt anger rise up my throat like lava. How many people are in this group? 17 we've identified so far. 3 have already been arrested. The others are under investigation. The psychologist leaned forward. Mr. Thomas, I understand your outrage. But I need to ask, what is your goal with this meeting? What do you intend to do? It was a fair question. I had spent 3 nights barely sleeping, thinking about it. Thinking about Daniel. Thinking about all those photos on Silva's phone. Thinking about how many other children were in danger at that very moment. I want to create safe points, I replied. Places where children can go if they feel they're in danger. Stores, commercial buildings, establishments willing to participate in a protection program. With visible identification. With proper training. One of the principals frowned. That already exists in some places. Community programs of. I know. But it's not enough. It's not publicized enough. Children don't know these places exist. And when they do know, they're afraid to use them because they think no one will believe them. I looked at each person in the room. Daniel almost didn't come into my building. He stood in the rain for 5 minutes before gathering the courage. 5 minutes when anything could have happened. The social worker nodded. That's true. Many children don't ask for help because they've tried before and were ignored. Or worse, they were scolded for making things up. Then let's change that. I took a document out of the folder I had brought. I prepared a proposal. I want to fund a pilot program in 10 schools in the region. Training for staff on how to identify signs of danger. Workshops for children on when and how to ask for help. And a network of partner establishments identified by a symbol that any child can recognize. The detective studied the document. This will require legal approval, coordination with multiple agencies. I know. That's why I called you. I need people who understand the system. Who know how to navigate the bureaucracy. I have the money and the will. You have the knowledge. Why are you doing this? The psychologist asked, but there was no suspicion in her voice. It was genuine curiosity. I thought about how to answer. I could say it was social responsibility, that it was good for my public image, that it was community investment. But the truth was simpler and more painful. Because I almost didn't believe him, I admitted. Daniel looked me in the eyes and told me he was in danger, and my first instinct was to doubt him. To think he was exaggerating. If I had given in to that instinct, if I had sent that boy away, I couldn't finish the sentence. The room fell silent for a moment. How many other children are asking for help right now and aren't being heard? I continued. How many are in danger because the adults around them are too busy, too tired, too skeptical to pay attention? The social worker cleared her throat. Mr. Thomas, data shows that most cases of violence against children happen because the signs were ignored. Not out of malice, but negligence. Lack of attention. Adults who think they know better than the children themselves about what they're feeling. Then let's teach adults to listen, I said simply. We spent the next 2 hours discussing details. Protocols. Training. Budgets. The detective agreed to connect the program with a specialized police unit. The principals committed to implementing it in their schools. The psychologist offered to supervise the workshops. When everyone left, I was alone in the meeting room, looking out the window at the city below. Millions of people. Thousands of children. How many of them were scared at that moment? How many needed someone to listen to them? My phone vibrated. A message from Daniel's mother. He asked if he can come visit you. He says he wants to show you something. I smiled for the first time in 3 days. Of course. Anytime. The reply came quickly. Tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Perfect. I put my phone away and looked at the city again. That lobby had changed everything. A scared child. An adult who finally listened. And now, a promise that this would never again be a matter of luck. Daniel arrived right at 3 in the afternoon, holding his mother's hand with a confidence he didn't have the first time we met. He wasn't trembling anymore. His eyes weren't wide with fear. There was something different about him, something that took me a few seconds to identify. Peace. Hi, Mr. Thomas. He smiled, and it was a real smile. Hi, Daniel. Your mom said you wanted to show me something. He nodded and opened his backpack, pulling out a drawing notebook. The pages were filled with vibrant colors, childlike lines but full of life. My psychologist said that drawing helps get feelings out, he said, opening to a specific page. This one is you. It was a simple drawing. A tall man in a suit next to a small boy. Between them, a giant shield with a heart in the center. Above it, written carefully, "Thank you for listening to me." I felt a tightness in my chest that I hadn't expected. It's beautiful, Daniel. Can I leave it with you? So you remember that you made a difference. I would love that. I took the drawing carefully, as if it were something precious. And it was. His mother, who had been quiet until then, discreetly wiped her eyes. The psychologist said he's recovering well. He still has nightmares sometimes, but he's getting better. And he wants to do something. Daniel got excited. I want to help other kids. The psychologist told me about your program, about the safe places. I wanted to record a video. So other kids know it's okay to ask for help. That adults will believe them. I looked at that 8-year-old boy who had crossed fear to save himself, and now wanted to use his experience to save others. He was braver than most adults I knew. I think that's an amazing idea, Daniel. Whenever you want to record it, let me know. We'll do it together. 6 months later, the Safe Haven program was operating in 23 schools. More than 100 commercial establishments displayed the symbol, a blue shield with an outstretched hand, in their windows. Children were being trained to recognize signs of danger. Adults were learning to truly listen. And Daniel had become the face of the program. His video, simple and honest, had reached millions of views. In it, Daniel told his story. How he was afraid. How he asked for help. How he was heard. And it ended with a sentence that became the project's motto. If you feel something is wrong, you're not imagining it. Ask for help. Someone will listen. 15 children had already used the safe havens since the program's launch. 15 children who could have become statistics, but who were now safe. The investigation of Roberto Silva had led to 23 arrests in total. The group had been dismantled. But the work was far from over. There would always be other predators. Other threats. The difference was that now there was a network. An attentive community. Adults trained to believe first and question later. I was in the same lobby where it all began when Jorge approached me. He had become a volunteer in the program, training other doormen and security guards. "Mr. Thomas, there's a girl outside. She says she's scared, that someone followed her here." I didn't hesitate. "Bring her inside. Activate the protocol." Jorge nodded and went to the door. Moments later, a girl about 9 years old came in, soaked by the rain, eyes wide. "It's okay," I said softly, kneeling to her height. "You're safe here. What's your name?" "Elena." "Elena, you did exactly the right thing by coming here. Did you see the blue shield on the door?" She nodded. "So you knew this was a safe place. You were very smart." I took out my phone. "I'm going to call the police and your parents, okay? And I'll stay here with you until they arrive." Tears ran down her face, but they were tears of relief. My teacher showed us the video of the boy who was helped. She said that if we felt scared, we should look for the shield. And you did. You were brave. While we waited for the police, Elena told me about the man who had followed her for 3 blocks. How she remembered the lessons at school. How she looked for the blue symbol and ran when she saw it. 30 minutes later, she was reunited with her parents. The police had located the man and taken him in for questioning. One more child safe. One more predator stopped. When everyone had left and the lobby returned to silence, I looked at the glass where everything had begun. The rain fell outside, just like it had that night. But something had changed. Not the world, perhaps. The world was still dangerous. There were still people who wanted to hurt children. What had changed was us. The adults who had finally learned the most important lesson, to believe. I took out my phone and sent Daniel a message, "Another child safe today. Thanks to you." The reply came quickly, "Thanks to us, Mr. Thomas. Thanks to us." I smiled and put the phone away. Across the lobby, Jorge gave a thumbs up. On the wall behind him, framed, was Daniel's drawing. The man and the boy. The shield with the heart. A permanent reminder that sometimes, saving a life begins simply by stopping to listen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and tell us in the comments which city or country you're watching from. Your interaction helps this message reach more